What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Blazers Edge podcast. I am your host, Danny Marang, and this week I am joined by my friend, co-writer,
co-contributor,
and
you go.
also sometimes editor of my awful stuff. You will know him as Steve Dewald. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Happy to be here on this beautiful Sunday.
Yeah, I already I got my Sunday Fun Day in ahead of time. I went and did my socially distancing beach access. And no, I will not tell you where it's at because it's mine, and I want you all to stay the hell away from me. But yeah, it was fun. I haven't talked about it a ton. If you follow me on IG at all, you've seen I've probably been hitting the diet pretty hard. But this is like the first time I've taken my shirt off and not been like, oh Lord, in a really long time because I'm down 40 pounds since the COVID outbreak. How about you, buddy? You made any significant gains during?
I'm treading. Like I'm definitely eating out less, but I'm definitely probably drinking more beer at night. So like that's
straight off.
It's a balance. Like I'm right where I was when this thing started.
I don't have a piece of clothing that fits, like anywhere, in anything. I am, as you can see right now, all of my workout gear is drowning me. I'm channeling my inner Skinny Melo right now.
There you go.
We both went on the COVID workout plan, which is pretty much depression and bad food. I think that's what millionaires do to lose weight, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, they definitely don't have professional trainers, chefs, and all of the things that money can buy. Are you buying Skinny Melo?
I mean, at this point, you kind of have to. I mean, like he can't. I mean, we've talked about this before. I mean, the guy came out of nothing, out of basically retirement, and
let's frame this real quick. We've talked about this plenty of times, but how absolutely insane is it that he came off the couch and not just played well and played 37 minutes a night? Mm-hmm. Like I don't think anybody go up and down the NBA. And find out how many guys are playing 34-plus minutes a night, okay? Now, cut that list down to guys who didn't have a training camp, didn't have the preseason, didn't have the lead-up, and just came out and just started playing. You're down to one.
Exactly.
Listen, I've had my fair share of complaints about Melo. There's no doubt about that. But his ability to pace himself, and I mean that in an actual good way, not taking place off, and eat up minutes is otherworldly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we're going to get to see some of it in the bubble here with Jamal Crawford and a few other Michael Beasley, who's kind of been in other leagues. But I mean, Crawford's going to be the other test here. But
yeah. Well, Bees got sent home because he tested positive. So remember, he got released. So we don't even know if he's going to get picked up by a team. But Crawford's another guy, though. I think he's like the marathon runner. Mm-hmm. Like he just never gets tired because he weighs 140 pounds. Melo was 240, let's be honest, probably more than that. He's probably down to 230 now. But
yeah. I mean, Jamal Crawford is immortal. Like if you ever get a
Methuselah.
chance when all this passes, the Seattle Pro-Am is one of the best day trips you can take to go up to Seattle and watch those guys run the open
gym. A pile of Seattle Hoopers.
And you just have Jamal Crawford out there. When I went probably 2 years ago, I think, it's him running with a bunch of high schoolers and, college guys that are top level. But, I mean, he is outrunning them all throughout the game. And then you can watch Tony Roten Jr. run three-point line to three-point line and jack threes. So that's worth it alone to go up there.
Yeah, and then, you get the Nate Robinsons and the ITs of the world who hop in there too. The Seattle Pro-Am is definitely one of the cooler off-season tournaments to kind of go check out. Do you think Skinny Melo is going to matter that he's dropped this weight? Do you think it's going to change anything? Do you think it's going to help him? Or are you just kind of ambivalent and, hey, it's Skinny Melo is another version of Melo in the long list of versions of Melo?
I mean, there's two things. I think do I think it's going to work, which I'm a little more up in the air about. And then it's going to have to work because the Blazers seem very determined to play him at the 3. And he is going to have to guard guys that are much quicker than what he was used to pre-bubble or pre-hiatus. And so he's going to really have to really find that lateral quickness that, has kind of evaded him in recent years. And hopefully, losing a few pounds is going to help him. And I mean, he doesn't have to play elite defense, but he at least has to kind of be there, and that's a lot to say when you got some of these perimeter threats that are going to be in that bubble.
Yeah. I don't want to knock it too much, but also I don't necessarily buying into it. So in talking to some folks around the league and a lot of analytics heavy folks in the background, the numbers actually bear out that defenses are actually better early on than people think, that it actually takes the offenses longer to come around. Do you think that maybe in that respect it could be beneficial to have offensive ready guys in Dame, CJ, Melo, Nurk, and to an extent Collins basically dominating your starting lineup?
I mean, this is the Kiki Vandeweghe defense, really, is kind of what it is. I mean, you have a guy who you're hoping is going to be a better net offensive player, and it's going to cover up for some of the defensive deficiencies. I mean, I think that's outside of that alone. I mean, just Melo is a bucket. Like he's always created for himself.
Much.
I mean, not so much now that he's older, but I mean,
I know, but just the fact you said, so people forget he's a bucket.
Yeah, I mean, some people. I mean, we were among those people on that list. I mean,
true.
We were on the first podcast after he signed together. So I mean,
terrified.
It's there, but yeah, I think it does. I think one thing is, I think Nurkic will hit the ground running, and I think that offense will come together. But there's a lot of guys who haven't played minutes together, or haven't played minutes together for a long time.
Hell, Nas has never even played with Nurk.
Well, and really, Zach Collins never really played a lot with Nurkic when Nurkic was healthy, when they were both healthy. So
Melo hasn't played with Nurk.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot there.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens. I'm not really gonna. I think overall, Rust, I think the Blazers might be ahead of the game just because of the type of chemistry that the whole organization has.
Yeah.
And the fact that those guys have been in the gym basically the whole time rehabbing injuries. So I think they could be ahead of schedule, but this idea that the offense is going to outweigh the defense, I'll need to see it before I believe it. So we'll see.
Stacking some wood on the fire for Dame, I see.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Speaking of camaraderie, CJ McCollum went out and did something pretty cool. For Dame's 30th birthday, he called ahead to the league, as one proper NBPA vice president should do, to get this okayed. Got him some lemon pepper wings and some short ribs made available for his birthday party. If it's your birthday party in the bubble, what is Steve Dewald getting delivered?
Ooh. Probably brisket.
Okay.
Smoked brisket.
Are we doing like a saucy brisket or just the good smoke?
No, good barbecue does not need barbecue sauce. Like that's something I live by.
Memphis, you can turn off now. It's okay. It's the folks in Memphis right now are calling for your head.
You know what I'm not ordering with hotel utensils is a full lobster. Like what is Hassan Whiteside doing? Like I saw the video of him getting so he's got chicken and then he reveals the lobster at the end, and it's just a whole lobster.
And it's not a small lobster; it's a Hassan Whiteside sized lobster.
No,
that's like a 7-pound lobster.
Yeah, you have Hassan Whiteside's hand next to this lobster, and it looks proportionate.
Yeah,
so proportional. So like it's a big lobster, and like as someone who worked on the road for a long time, I know what he's working with in that hotel room probably, and I don't know how. Granted, it's not crab, and I mean. With crab, my favorite story ever is Alex Linden Cole, one of my good friends, 4-year starter at Oregon State at center. We went to Vegas after he signed with the Bears, and we went to the Bellagio seafood buffet. Mm-hmm. And I watched him, and like we're all chowing down, and he just sat there and cracked crab legs for like 45 minutes, didn't eat any of it, and he just made a mound of crab legs. And like he was sweating by the end of it, like pro athlete, sweating, getting to that crab meat. And then he just laughed at us all as he enjoyed a pound of just delicious, uncracked crab meat. And I just
all at one time.
it was just, even at that point, I was like, this is just way too much work. Like, and to see him order that lobster just blew my mind. That was the first thing I thought of.
Was it just me, or did that lobster look like it was a weird color?
I don't know, man. I don't trust sea cockroaches in general. So
I've got to tell this story real quick because it's insane. When I was in the Air Force, I got stationed in a place called Diego Garcia. I think I've talked about it on the podcast once or twice before, but it's literally an island in the middle of the Indian Ocean, just north of the equator. Its sole purpose is to fly long-range aircraft out of and refuel them. But it's a horseshoe-shaped island. Google it. It's called Diego Garcia, and it's owned by the Brits. And on one side of the island is where they actually raise the Queen's lobsters and crabs. And I'm not kidding you. The lobsters there are like, this is what Godzilla fights off. They are massive. And there's a crab there that climbs trees. It is the weirdest place on the planet. It's like I said, it's a horseshoe-shaped island. In the middle of it is a lagoon. And you will see quite literally the world's biggest lobster. I'm talking like 1.5 foot long lobsters. It's like somebody injected the radioactive jelly into this island. The same place I caught it was it's like a 700-pound swordfish. Just, everything here is just bigger and larger than life. But yeah, that's the Queen has her own little island where her own crabs and lobsters are raised, and it's a sight to behold. Even Hassan Whiteside would struggle to believe how big this lobster is. So you're looking at. Let's talk about. No, go ahead.
Oh, before we got off track, what would be your birthday order in the bubble? I'm assuming it's not tacos with romaine lettuce or a big plate of waffles.
It is definitely neither of those. Honestly, I'd probably go like a Mexican buffet kind of deal, like a taco bar, like a real taco bar. Like I want some carne asada. I want some carnitas. Yeah, that's what I'd do. And, have some like actual like fired up flour tortillas, some cheese, some onions, some green onions, some cilantro, a really good like I'm going to shout out a place on the podcast for free. There's a fast food joint called Habaneros. They're in Salem and Tualatin. And it is the best freaking fast food taco spot in Oregon, hands down. And to be honest, man, I'd let them cater it for sure. But yeah, it would, especially right now doing keto, like if I was off this, it would definitely be something with tortillas or pizza. It would be one of those two things. Just see, now you're a jerk. Now my mouth is like watering like there's no tomorrow because I haven't had anything close to either of those things in March.
Oh man.
So what is it? March 18th, March 19th, I think is when I started. Yeah. So the closest thing I've had is keto bread, which it's not great, Bob.
Don't call that bread.
It takes a healthy amount of either mustard or sriracha to overpower the tongue dry, stick to the roof of your mouthness. But you do what you got to do to get by.
My other thing with the birthday dinner is like there was this whole storyline that emerged from it too, where it's like CJ reveals that Damian Lillard has a nicer room in the bubble, and I'm like,
shocking! Dude, the top 5 NBA player has the presidential suite on the road.
Yeah. Hey. Not news. That's not news.
For those, well, maybe for some people that is news. So when the teams travel around, there's a limited amount of obviously of like presidential suites or honeymoon suites or whatever you want to have on the road. Guess what? The rookies aren't getting the presidential suites. Dame is getting the presidential suite at the Four Seasons. That's how this works, and it has always worked. And the hierarchy, and we had Nas on the pod a couple of weeks ago talking about what he enjoys most about traveling on the road is that he gets to pocket his per diem. He'll spend $10 on lunch and then pocket his per diem. And honestly, I've heard from a lot of teams, those star players per diem goes up a little bit too. So it's nice to be the king, so to speak. But if you were surprised that Damian Lillard was getting the presidential suite, you know what though? The NBA did do the whole like marketing of this, of like, oh yeah, everybody's living the same, and LeBron has kind of made a show of this. I'm not bringing my extra trainer, my extra security, my extra chef, my extra da 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 da. And it was like, yeah, because that's what he normally brings on the road. For everybody who doesn't know, like he has an entire entourage that comes with him when they go on the road. Now, do other star players do that? Yeah, but not to the extent LeBron does. Like Dame has guys go with him. For those that don't know, there are extra guys that go with Dame that take care of his stuff. But if that was a surprise to you, don't let it be. These guys are taken care of on a ridiculous level on the road.
And I mean, my upside of this is, imagine if Ben Golliver had a bigger room, like we wouldn't get that gold of that video, that he could capture it all on one screen of him just walking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Like
those that don't realize too, BG's like 6'5", 6'6". He may be 6'7".
He's not a little guy.
Yeah, BG is a big, long, lanky dude. And so to put him in a room with two twin beds, if you haven't seen it, go to Ben Golliver's Twitter. He posted a whole breakdown of kind of things, the day-to-day grind inside the bubble at the Washington Post. For those that don't know, obviously Ben kind of got to start here at Blazers Edge, and he's a good friend of mine, so always go support BG. But yeah, it's ridiculous. What do you have? He posted a screenshot of his steps. It was like 14,000 steps that he did in the room.
I just saw his podcasting partner Andrew Sharp give him a hard time about how the snitch line is probably lighting up with the person who lives below Ben Golliver at this point right now in that hotel.
Okay, what's been your favorite snitch line adjacent story so far?
I don't know if it was the snitch line or just the league issued the memo about proper dress code when you answer the door. Because
who was the most likely person to answer the door naked?
I mean, for me, it's got to be Dwight Howard. But I mean, like, granted, this borders on the line of probably something very inappropriate, especially if it was a female staff worker. But it just seems ridiculous. Like, it seems ridiculous that has to be. And like, as I alluded to earlier, like when I worked on the road, I was living in hotels, and like I just could not imagine like conducting yourself in that way.
I had to look and see if Evan Turner was on a team. That was my first thought. I'm like, is ET on a team right now? Like I could see Evan with he's a big time robe guy. The Jimmy Butler one, the legend of Jimmy Butler continues to grow. Of security knocking on his door after the snitch line being called, and he's soaked in sweat from head to toe in practice gear, dribbling his ball. And I'm just like, Jimmy Butler was the one who called the security guard just to grow his own narrative. That was the first thought that I had. And the thing is, I love Jimmy, but like, there's such a thing as too much. Have you been surprised that the Blazers haven't had any? Not necessarily surprised, because surprised probably isn't the best word, because this team is pretty much low key as could be. But are you at least a little bit surprised that there hasn't really been any mention of the Blazers with anything, without any regard to anything else, as far as outside of like Dame's birthday and actual media obligations?
Not really, just with kind of how tight of a ship the organization runs most of the time. Now, what I am surprised about a little bit is you have two young guys on that team that are from the area, and I was surprised that they weren't one of the teams that got busted for ordering food from a non-approved place, because Anfernee and Nassir know
the spots. They know the spots, hands down.
And that was the one thing I was a little worried about, was like, man, if they're walking across, like, was it JaVale McGee who broke quarantine?
Rashawn.
Okay. And so I'm like, oh man, this could totally be the Blazers, because those two guys know every good place to eat down there. So
yeah.
But
yeah,
really not too much though. I'm not surprised they haven't been in the headlines for the wrong reasons.
To kind of like go along with that, I'm not surprised, and that I think this kind of highlights why. When they showed Dame at his birthday party celebrating, and they asked him what he wanted, and don't waste my blanking time. And I think that's the approach this team is taking. And let's kind of get into the meat of the basketball stuff here. Practices are going. It looks like they're ramping things up. The teams around the Blazers are falling apart. Zion has had personal issues he's going to go deal with. DeAaron Fox has sprained an ankle. That's the probable two best players for the teams that are chasing Portland right now. That's pretty insane already, right?
Yeah, I mean it's really kind of evening out for the unfortunate scheduling that the Blazers kind of got when the schedule came out. The Zion thing is huge.
Because we don't know when he's going to come back, and even then, it's a 10-day.
I mean, we're up against it right now.
Yeah, what's he got? So he's got. Oh, we're recording here on Sunday, and it is the 19th. So we are literally 2 days away from him missing the first game. At this point, yep. And that's without him. That's without him testing positive on the reentry. Because if he tests positive, it's 2 weeks.
Yeah, everything has to break right for him right now, and. Yeah, right now, I mean, it's just with how easy the Pelican schedule was, it was a home run for them if they had everybody there. And now it's, you're having that doubt seep in.
Yeah. So. Don't get me wrong. Ingram was playing great. Lonzo, who I didn't think would ever play great, has been playing very well. You still got Drew. But Zion's that X factor. He's what blows games open. He's that mismatch from hell, right? DeAaron Fox is the engine for the Kings, and everybody kind of just kept writing them off. I mean, if he tries to come back and play on this, is it the best idea? I don't know. I think that changes my mind from the Blazers needing 6 wins to them needing 5.
And with the Pelicans too, like going back outside of players on the court, with Jeff Bezdelic not coming to the bubble, I mean, that guy does not get enough credit as a defensive mastermind.
He's the best in the league right now. I don't think you'll have an argument about that. Doc may have been a couple years ago, Tibbs maybe before that with Doc, but he's probably the best defensive mind in the NBA right now.
Well, and Tibbs got all the credit, and they just kind of made up. They redefined NBA defenses around Tibbs, and that's what they should have been doing for Bezdelic in the last couple of years. In the same way, I mean. His switch first defensive style
is more conducive to today's NBA.
That Rocket team and put Warriors at full health. Yeah.
Yeah. For everybody listening, if you hear a puppy yelp in the background, that's because he's a complete pain in the ass. I can hear him going off. I don't know if the mic's picking him up. He's been here for a week now, and I love him to death. But it's that time of day. Yep, it's 5:00. So he's going to yelp because he wants his food now. Do you think when you look at everything that's going on right now and the way the bubble has been now for a week plus, has your mind changed at all as far as the bubble being successful and getting all the way through it and actually completing the rest of the season?
I will say it might have become more optimistic because I think I've seen them enforce certain things a little more strictly than I thought they were going to initially.
We're a damn mess, Dwight.
Yeah, exactly. So I am a little more optimistic on that front. I think the big test will come in this week when the scrimmages start and we start to see teams interacting with each other. Now, granted, if everybody's adhering to the bubble correctly and
shouldn't be an issue.
Everything's going as planned, it should not be an issue. But, we're going to up the variance here a little bit. But, yeah, I am a little more optimistic. Now, what hasn't changed for me, though, is just the optics of the league being in Orlando and being in Florida when Florida outside of the bubble is a complete disaster. I mean, as far as coronavirus numbers go. And I mean, I think if the NBA just came out and said it's all about money and all this and, we're just trying to restart the season, it's one thing, but the NBA definitely markets themselves as the most progressive of the major sports
league,
leagues.
hashtag.
And when you do that, and you have optics like this, there are consequences, and they are a little hypocritical.
Very much so.
Florida comes out and says, hey, we're open for business, and the NBA takes them at that. And when clearly, probably Florida should not have been saying we're open for business until they had a little bit more knowledge of what was going on. But inside the bubble, I'm definitely more confident. outside of the bubble, I think it's bad optics that you have people, 15 minutes away that are waiting hours to get tested and days to get the results. I think that's bad. But yeah, at the end of the day, I am much more optimistic that the NBA is going to keep their players safe while they're in the bubble.
I think I'm pretty much with you on every point as far as that goes. I think I was probably a bit more optimistic from the jump. Even when they canceled the season, or put the season on hold, I should say, probably a month into it, I'm like, they're going to do this just because of the financial implications. It was one of those things where it's like, I don't think people really understand how much money this is. And whether or not you want to argue that should have ever been a point, guess what? I talked to a lot of folks who were like, I am not giving up that money. And I'm not talking on the ownership side. So I don't think I'm really surprised, at least in that respect. But back to the basketball side of things. We've got the scrimmages coming up. They're reducing the minutes on those. We'll be broadcasting those on NBC Sports Northwest. Heads up. I won't be doing the post-game show for those. Don't even count on that. I'm not. No. That is not happening. However, when the games come back, Dan, I will be doing it.
We want Dan talking about those hot practice minutes with Hassan Whiteside and Yusuf Nurkic next to each other.
God. I was just gonna say, what's the one thing you're looking forward to in this resume to play where you're gonna see live action, Trailblazers action.
I think with me, I'm the draft guy, so I'm always usually more geared to watching the younger players. I think one thing a lot of people aren't talking about is Anfernee Simons just needed a reset on this season. He has all the talent in the world, and he had a run of just really bad foul trouble, kind of getting asked to do a little bit more than he probably should have been doing at this point in his career, and it just kind of snowballed from there. I think this reset could be really good for his mindset going into this, and I think it could be a fresh start for him. And if he hits the ground running, because the Blazers are going to need bench minutes from somewhere, and I think him and Gary Trent Jr. are going to play a huge role in that. And that's what I'm really interested to see. I'm really interested to see how he approaches the game, if he can stay out of foul trouble on defense, and if he can just kind of pick his spots and not try to do too much on offense.
And that's the thing. In talking to the coaching staff before the season kind of came to a halt, the one thread about Ant was we're not worried about his offense. Nobody on that coaching staff, nobody in that organization is remotely worried about Anfernee Simons' offense. If you're out there and you're in the comment section, saying if Anfernee Simons has any talent at all or any trade value at all, you don't have a clue. Absolutely none. Ant is a guy that is still very highly regarded in the organization. And they're not worried about his offensive ball. Like it's the issue that he ran into was a changing of roles, going from a guy who was really just supposed to get buckets with the second unit and then create as a secondary playmaker, to having to run a second unit that had almost no floor spacing outside of Gary Trent Jr. That's the reality. And then he compounded it by struggling defensively. So that's what happened. He's got to figure out the defensive side of the ball. He's got to be better on the defensive side of the ball. That's been the common thread. Talking to him before they left, he's amped to go. Like he needed this. He needed this second opportunity, and for him, it's like playing at home. Him and, like you said, him and Nas, they're from down there. The only guy who's going to be in there in this restart who's got more minutes in Florida and at the wide world of sports that Nas said this is Austin Rivers. And he cooked there. He may have scored more points at the wide world of sports than any player ever. But this is not unfamiliar territory for Ant and Nas. So I'm excited to at least see him out there. I'll put it this way. Where would you put the over-under on minutes for Ant? Because I think minutes for Gary's probably 24. I think that's a safe number for Gary, if not more. Where would you say Ant falls minutes-wise?
I think just because of where Gary's going to have to play, I think
sliding up to the 3.
Yeah, I think Ant's probably in the ballpark. I would put the over/under at like 18. I think would be a safe. It would be a tough line to bet on, I think, in my eyes, on which way to go there. I just think they're going to need him to come in and play. I think and really outside of Ant, what I'm watching for is how much is Stotts going to really rely on some of these, like the Mario Hezonja and Nassir Little battle is going to be a very interesting thing for me.
One of those guys is going to get their minutes cut.
Exactly. And I just wonder, is Stotts going to pivot to the rookie, or is he going to pivot to a guy who's been in the league a little bit more? And that, I think that'll be really telling to see basically how are the Blazers treating this shutdown? Did they treat it like a full off season, or did they see enough growth from this year in this to treat it like, hey, he's not really a rookie anymore. He's been around the playbook. He's been around what we're trying to do.
He's actually been in the league for more than a year now.
Exactly. So are they going to rely on him, or are they going to, do whatever they're doing with Mario Hezonja? So
speaking of more than a year and how the league is treating this year, we'll kind of wrap on this. The awards are been finalized as far as, in your mind, when the league went on suspension. So that means MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, All NBA, all that kind of stuff. Where does Damian Lillard fall on the All NBA list? Is he first team or is he second team?
It's hard because where the Blazers' record is.
Mm-hmm.
But for what he did, and I would say this would be on the top of his resume before I say what I would do. It's not what he did when the Blazers were winning. It's what he did when the Blazers lost. When he drops 60 points and the Blazers lose, I think that is the biggest thing that you can put at the top. That's what I would put on the top of the resume. And I think the guards are loaded here, but I still think if he's not first team, he's second team, in my opinion. And I mean, obviously I'm a Portland guy, but I think for what he did, and the whole reason the Blazers are in the bubble even is because of Damian Lillard.
Because of his power in the league, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, getting it within striking distance they could easily be behind the Suns if they didn't have Damian Lillard and be out of this competition. So,
God, that hurts.
Yeah.
Because it really is only a couple games. That's the insane thing. Who do you have for MVP? Did you go LeBron, Kawhi, or Giannis?
My preseason predictions were Bucks and Giannis, so I'm going to stick with it.
Defensive Player of the Year.
That's a little tougher.
You want to say it.
I'm not going to say it. But I don't really have a clear-cut pick in the Defensive Player of the Year. I'm going to stay out of it. Obviously, there's a lot of guys that are deserving of that award.
Mm-hmm.
I think if Rudy Gobert doesn't go around touching a bunch of people's phones, he probably has a little bit better case. But, yeah, I mean, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to give Giannis the sweep. But,
he's in consideration. There's no doubt about it. I think I'm leaning Gobert in that regard. But to me, it's probably Gobert than Giannis. And Giannis's positional versatility and who he has to guard, I think, changes that up. And then we'll kind of wrap on this one. Rookie of the Year.
I think you just got to go Ja, just because he did so much for, and in general, that Grizzlies team does not get talked about enough.
No.
Like, I know they're in direct competition with the Blazers right now, but for what Taylor Jenkins did with that team this year is amazing. And if that's in any other market but Memphis, that gets so much more run. I mean, you have a team that's a bunch of inexperienced guys who've never played together. You have a rookie point guard. You have a second-year power forward that are leading your team.
A rookie point guard who is running your offense, which we really haven't seen since Dame. And you can maybe say Ben Simmons to an extent, but he also had Joel already, there kind of a deal, in which the offense is more running through Joel than it is Ben, even if Ben is setting the table. Ja is running the offense in almost the same fashion that Dame was running the Blazers offense. And I know Dame had LaMarcus, but LaMarcus is a different player than a Joel. I mean, that's just kind of how it was. So,
I mean, but I do want to shout out my guy, Terrence Davis, for the Raptors for rookies, because that guy does not get enough run either. I mean, he stepped into a big role in a situation on a team that's defending a title that was asking a lot from a lot of young players, and Terrence Davis has answered the call at every bell.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of young dudes who play damn good basketball. Harrow, Kendrick Nunn, Terrence Davis. I mean, you kind of look up and down the list, you're like, this is going to be – everybody kind of like, well, after Jaw and Zion, is this class really that good? And it's like, yeah, this class is really freaking good. Stop that. This isn't like, what is it? Was it a 2014 class? That was just kind of like, no, this is going to be a really good class. And it's going to be really fun to kind of watch these guys develop over the years. Thanks for hopping on, man. What are you working on? What do you got coming? What's coming up?
I'm going to expand my big board to probably 30 players this week. So you'll see that. Yeah, I know. It gets gets real eye of the beholder after 20 with this class.
20?
Yeah. Well, after 5.
12? Yeah, I was the same.
But so I'll be doing that. I think I'm going to do something a little fun as far as doing a mock dispersal draft. So it's not going to happen, but let's say you took the 8 bubble teams and you made them enter all their players in a dispersal draft. For this argument's sake, any all-stars are taken off the list, but you get to select one player to join a certain team for the bubble. And who would the Blazers pick? Who would be on their list, basically? Who would be the top 5 guys on their list?
Ooh.
So that's something that I'll probably have early in the week, and then by the end of the week I'll have my big board a little bit bigger.
Find your small forward here.
Well, the problem with I think the biggest thing when I started looking at this list is like the difference between the haves and the have-nots in this league are depth at the wing, and turns out a lot of these non-bubble teams do not have a lot of depth at those positions.
Shocking, I'm sure.
Yeah,
but hey,
exactly.
Let's keep hoping for more point guards. I'm sorry.
Point guards or centers.
My pettiness just kind of knows no bounds with that. So thanks for hopping on, man. I appreciate it. For everybody who's stuck through and listening in, this is just kind of like, hey, let's take a look. Let's take a step back. Let's see what's coming down the pipe. Next week is when we actually have some stuff to talk about. That's when we have real basketball back in play. And we'll be there to bring it to you. We'll definitely have Steve come back on when we're starting back up. I will be back with Joe Simons doing NBC Sports Northwest Blazers Outsiders, following every game. Once the season kicks off, Joe and I are heading back in the studio later this week to kind of do some dress rehearsal stuff because we have to do things a little bit differently as far as COVID protections and making sure everybody feels comfortable and safe and that we're doing what's necessary. But beyond that, we have some really cool stuff that we're going to have integrated for the show because guess what? There's nothing going on in the arena. So we have resources, baby. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be weird, but it's going to be fun. So make sure you tune in for that. Steve, go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you, man.
Hey, just real quick, man, you're looking great. Keep it up. Rest in peace to your extra chin when you go back on the air.
Appreciate it.
I mean that lovingly in the most lovingly way possible. But you can follow me at Steve D Hoops. I'll be on Blazers Edge more often than not, especially now with everything ramping up.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, man. And yes, I'll have the side by side of when the season ended and when the season starts back up and how I look like I ate the guy I used to be previously. So it'll be fun. But thanks for listening, everybody. Make sure to like, rate, review, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. And as always, we'll catch you next week. Bye.